Welcome to the Forever and Ever podcast. I'm your host, Omar Hargrove, and I'm glad that you're here today as we are going to be talking about reigniting the spark in your relationship. And this podcast is all about creating that love that's not only strong, but full of joy and connection. And last time we talked about intimacy, we talked about this idea of the foundation of a thriving relationship. And if you missed it, I encourage you to go back and listen because it's a really important topic. And as we're diving into something that every couple faces at some point, and it's that idea of falling out of love or losing that spark. And you know what I'm talking about. It's like that magic that you have at the beginning that seems like it's no longer there. That excitement that you felt when you first fell in love. And over time, as life happens, it can feel like that spark starts to dim a little. But here's the good news is that it doesn't have to stay that way. Whether you've been together for years, for just a few years, or for decades, it's absolutely possible to reignite the passion and bring new life into your relationship. And that's what we're going to really explore today. So let's go ahead and get comfortable and dive in. The first thing that we're going to talk about is what is that spark? And it's that feeling of excitement, that feeling of anticipation, that connection that you felt in the early days of your relationship. And remember, like you get those butterflies in the stomach, the way that you couldn't wait to see each other, the way even like the smallest moments together felt really special. And, you know, for me and Lauren, I've shared this before. It's like we were dating long distance, and so we would just stay up till so late in the night, just really listening to each other breathe. It's not even like we were having these always constantly having these deep, meaningful conversations, but we just wanted to be together. And as soon as we saw each other, you know, it was just like we couldn't keep our hands off of each other. We just wanted to kiss and hold hands and I remember there was a moment where even like at every stoplight we would be driving is like we would just have like this mini makeout session, and it was just that little spark that we're talking about today. And it's that thrill of newness and discovery. It's that flirtatious moment that feels a little curious and excited when there's interest in you. And while the initial intensity might fade over time, it doesn't mean that your relationship is any less valuable or meaningful. Just being able to know now that you know your partner more fully, it doesn't mean that spark is no longer possible. In fact, the spark evolves into something much deeper. It turns into the sense of stability, of trust, partnership, but it's still important to nurture that sense of excitement and passion as well. So let's talk about why does that spark fade? As we address this, I want to give a spoiler alert. It's not because you're just falling out of love. I know that that's like a really common theme that we've seen in movies, and we kind of copycat what we see and what we hear. In most cases, it's simply because life gets busy and we get more responsibilities, whether it's work, whether it's kids, whether it's bills. It all just adds up. And in the middle of all of that, it's easy to take each other for granted. And ironically, you end up taking each other for granted because that feels like the most secure thing that you have. But all these other things, it feels like you're playing this juggling act while you don't always necessarily feel like you're having to juggle each other. And it's one of those reasons why it seems like it gets put on the back burner. It starts losing that attention. Another reason that the spark fades is that we fall into these routines. And routines are good. I'm a creature by habit, for sure. They can be comforting, and they also can make things feel predictable, but sometimes boring. And remember when everything felt new and exciting? You know, it's like the very first time you kiss and like learning how each other's tongues work. And over time, though, that novelty kind of wears off. And if we're not careful, we stop putting in the effort to make each other feel special. You know, even just consider sex. Like, when's the last time that you tried a different position? You know, when's the last time that you try to like switch things up in y'all's normal routine? Or do y'all just kind of go through the same chore of having sex just to have sex rather than like at the beginning being in the moment? Allow yourself to not worry about what's to do next. Allow yourself to have a moment where you truly just enjoying each other's physical touch and this emotional connection during the act of sex. And then there's the fact that we grow and change as individuals. Things that we used to like at the beginning, we may not like now that we're older, more mature. The person that you were when you first fell in love isn't the same person that you are today. And that's okay. That's a part of life. And sometimes we think that that's like a bad thing. And again, I think that a lot of times we kind of romanticize or put these kind of like wild ideas. We take wild ideas from movies and think that they're applicable to our lives. And we start saying things like, well, you're not the person who I once married. We're like, of course, not the same person after 10 years. Like, if you're still acting like a 20-year-old, then like there's problems, okay? You should mature. You should grow as a person. The key is learning to grow together and staying curious about each other. Just as to know that like our taste in music even changes. Our taste in things can change, and being able to understand that and know that you're different, and kind of learning what is new for you, kind of being self-aware, and then applying that same curiosity to your partner, and figuring out who they are now instead of who they once were. And it can be this really beautiful exchange. Now let's talk about some practical ways that we can kind of reignite the spark. And now that we understand that why the spark could fade, and a lot of times it's those routines, as just kind of getting busy, and it just slowly, that fire stops having that fresh wind blown on it, and it's dying down a little bit. Let's talk about how to bring it back up. And here's the thing, reigniting the spark doesn't mean that you have to necessarily reinvent your relationship to plan this big, grand, romantic gesture. And it's sometimes mostly about having these small, intentional actions that show your partner care, and that you care. Try you could even do things like revisit your love story, take a trip down memory lane, talk about how you first met, start conversations about your first date, or the moment that you knew you were in love. Have like these revisits of meaningful moments and conversations to reconnect those memories, and it can help remind you of why you fell in love and with each other in the first place. One thing I like to do at the beginning of marriage counseling sessions is, the first thing I do is I ask is, do you want this to work? And once we get past that, and if both people can say yes, that they do want it to work, then the follow-up question is why? And I'll ask, why do you want this to work? Why do you really want this marriage to work? And as people start to express almost like unintentionally, they almost surprise themselves. They come in barely being able to look at each other. They most likely got in a fight in the car right before coming into our place. And as they're kind of arms folded and like, well, yeah, I want it to work. And as they start talking about why, you start to see them loosen up, and you start to see them even remember themselves of this beautiful story that they actually have together. And they start almost falling in love all over again as they're trying to, again, like unintentionally defend why they love this person. And it's a beautiful thing. And just consider that to yourself, whether it's having that conversation with your spouse, or even like talking about it with someone else. Like, why did you love them in the first place? And number two is prioritize that quality time with one another. This one is huge. When was the last time that you spent some uninterrupted time together? No kids, no phones, no distractions. When's the last time you scheduled a date night? Even if it's just cooking dinner together at home, the key here is to be fully present with one another. It doesn't always work for us to be able to go somewhere or spend money to do something. That's sometimes the excuses we use, like, well, we don't have a babysitter, or we're kind of tight on funds. You can still do something at home. One date night not too long ago, me and Lauren did this kind of like a silly activity where we try to draw self-portraits of each other. And I thought I could, I've never been good at drawing faces, okay? That's just, I can draw other things and I feel like it comes out decent. I just can't draw faces. And it was really like funny as we were both drawing each other, and she was really talking it up like, oh, mine is, oh, like, I'm actually really good at this. I didn't realize how good I would be. And I was getting kind of intimidated, like, because, when I drew a face, it looked like a potato. And it was like, what I was working on seemed almost insulting. And when we revealed it to each other, it was just like this hilarious moment for both of us, to where it felt special. Even though when she showed me her picture, I was like, I cannot believe you were talking this up. That's like the Worst drawing I've ever seen. And mine was much worse than hers though. But anyway, it is this like simple thing to where it didn't cost us any money. It just took us a moment where after putting the kids to bed, we did just an activity together. We just spent this quality time together where it felt special, and we were talking in between. So again, whatever it is for you, prioritize some quality time with one another, whether it's having these like scheduled date nights or even having like it fit in your routine, to where y'all are kind of like have a moment together where you're decompressing your day with one another. With another little extra note for me and Lauren is we generally always take showers together in the evening, and it's not even like this like hot and steamy sexual thing. It's just us like kind of talking about our day as we are getting ready for the evening, like just kind of getting ready for to relax and decompress. In that simple moment, it allows us to have this routines, regular time of us being able to connect with one another in ordinary ways. So again, not always have to be this grand gesture. It's just making these simple moments. Another thing is try something new together. Novelty is a powerful way to reignite the spark. And whether it's taking like some type of class together, going to a gun range, taking a dance class, trying a new hobby, or planning a weekend getaway, if allowed, share some new experiences that makes it that brings a little extra excitement and bring y'all closer in the process as y'all are both trying something new. For me and Lauren, there's a time where we went rollerblading together, and I felt like it was such a beautiful time where we got to both slip and fall together as we're doing something that neither one of us was necessarily great at. So again, just trying to switch things up, instead of going to the same restaurant that y'all always go to, try switching up y'all's routine. Another thing is surprise each other. Do something unexpected to show them that you're thinking about them. It doesn't have to be this extravagant thing. Again, it could be as simple as leaving a note on the table right before you leave, or picking up their favorite coffee. These kind of little surprises go a long way in keeping that connection alive. A simple thing that I really recommend to the guys out there is getting a little token of flowers. Flowers are really cheap. As you could get some for $7. Think about that. $7 at HEB at the local grocery store. Bring home some flowers. It's just this simple little gesture that says, I thought about you, I love you. And surprising each other with whatever way it looks like, even if it's just no, it really does make a difference. And of course, my favorite is be playful. Laughter is one of the best ways to reconnect. And whether it's y'all even like just watching a comedy show together, going to a comedy club together, play a silly game, do something that makes you both smile. Don't take each other so seriously. We should always take our marriages seriously, but we shouldn't take ourselves so seriously. Sometimes we take we need to just allow playfulness to lighten the mood and bring back the fun. I feel like even being playful has helped avoid even potential fights, to where one of us said something or did something, or we both did, and there's like this misunderstanding brewing, and you can kind of feel that tension rising. And there'd be times where either me or Lauren will just kind of say, something silly, something I told Lauren the other day. I said, and if you get mad about this, then I'm going to just kiss you on the mouth. And it was just like a simple little playful thing, to where we both knew that we didn't really want to fight. And that little playful attitude with one another, again, helped us to not take ourselves so seriously and really get to what we want, which is connection with one another. So all that being said, let's move on to this idea of reconnecting through physical intimacy. That's what we really want to talk about, right? And we can't talk about reigniting the spark without mentioning some physical intimacy. I mean, we need sex. We need sexual interaction with one another in marriage. And life can get really busy. Sometimes that physical closeness can take the back seat. But that physical intimacy is such an important part of staying connected. And I don't know how many times is like, especially, I never thought in my life that I would be too tired to have sex. Yet, It only took working a job I had to wake up for 5 in the morning to. It's like it's times where whether it's a job or having kids can be a real strain on that intimacy because you're just drained physically, mentally, emotionally. And at the end of the day, it's like I just want to pass out, or I just want to lay here, I just want to do nothing. And it can be so easy to allow a couple days to turn into a couple weeks, to turn into a couple months, to where you can't even remember the last time that you had sex with one another. And it truly, if you don't use it, you lose it. Like you will continue to grow further and further apart if you're not actively having sex. And now, look, I don't know if there's like a perfect mathematical equation of how frequent you should have sex, but I think that a general rule of thumb is that you should have sex once, twice a week minimum. And for some of you, that might feel appropriate. Others, that might feel like, what, that much? But I'm telling you, it's because that is, I think, this reasonable expectation that you can have with one another, to where it does challenge you. It does challenge you to make time to do that. But when you have it that frequently, it keeps y'all so connected and close. What I've found is that when you go longer than that, you will start to feel more agitated with one another. It's almost like you'll feel irritated and you don't even know why. But when you're actively having sex consistently, you are connecting with each other emotionally, spiritually, physically. It is so many different things happen with sex, to where it's not just, oh, you guys both came. It's not like that. It's well, that is a great part of it. That is a great result. But it is about where you are literally connecting yourselves with this other person. It is an intimate moment. And when you are able to connect emotionally, it's like it can resolve conflict. It can resolve tension. There's been literal times where you may even reflect on times where y'all were both angry at each other, and maybe you even had like makeup sex or angry sex, and afterwards, like, why were we ever mad? It's just this like supernatural thing. And if you think about it, even on a spiritual level, like it is God's gift to mankind. It is this beautiful thing that one of the very first things that Adam and Eve even seemingly do is have sex with one another. And out of all the things that are in this world, like this is one of the greatest experiences that humans can experience. It's like this monumental moment in our lives where when we have sex, it is like this life-changing event. And this is the thing that God created. It's not like God was up in heaven like, you guys did what? I can't believe, what were you thinking, you sickos? God made it. God made these parts fit just perfectly together, and he made it on purpose to feel good. It's not just about procreation or for us to have kids. It takes pleasure first. Like not every time is it produce children, but generally almost every time it does produce pleasure. So again, if things have felt distant in that area, start small. Maybe you just need to start holding hands again. Maybe you need to hug each other more, cuddle on the couch more. These small gestures can help rebuild that sense of emotional closeness. And then you need to have an open conversation about your needs and your desires. It isn't just remember, it's not just about the act itself. It's about creating this space where you both feel loved and valued. And it needs to be a conversation, which leads to our next point, which is communication is key. None of this works without communication. If you're feeling like that spark is fading, then you need to talk about it with your partner. I wouldn't suggest framing it as a complaint, but frame it as an opportunity to grow together. For example, you could say, I miss how we used to laugh and have fun together. How can we bring some of that back? Instead of saying, you don't laugh with me anymore, say, I miss how we laugh together. And don't forget to listen. Ask your partner what they need or how they feel when it comes to being more connected and valued. Sometimes just having this kind of conversation can reignite the spark itself, because it shows that you care and are willing to put in the effort. And especially in regards to sex, like y'all should have a conversation about, so what are your thoughts about sex? How often should we be having sex? Do you feel like sex has changed for us? Should we, do you feel like it's just become a chore? Does it feel boring to you? Like, well, and just talk to each other about it. And finally, making reigniting the spark a habit. Here's the thing about reigniting the spark. It's not just this one-time fix. It's not just do one thing and everything's better now. It's something that you have to work on consistently. The more that you make it a habit, the easier it becomes. Think about for you guys out there that really care about your grass, think about how often you have to cut the grass or maintain the grass, water the grass. It's several things that go into just keeping up your lawn. And it's not just doing it once and oh, never have to worry about that again. It's something that you have to consistently nurture and grow and take care of. Well, that is a lot like how it is with our marriages. And sometimes we act like we're the crazy ones when we say, well, I thought we already talked about this and we never have to talk about it again. No, it's something it's a multifaceted relationship. There's so many things that go into us as people, us as in our marriage. So we need to understand that it is just not step one, check. I checked off the box. I don't have to do this anymore. This is really about learning how to nurture one another in our marriage and relationships. So set small goals. Maybe it's one date night a month or one new experience every few weeks. Maybe it's some daily check-ins or spending 5 minutes talking about something other than the logistics of y'all's life. Whatever it is, keep it simple and make it sustainable. Make it something that really can fit in y'all's lives. And it's okay if it challenges you a little bit, but also don't make it something that makes it feel unobtainable. So all that being said, before we wrap up, I want to challenge you to take one step towards reigniting the spark this week. Don't keep putting it off. And maybe it's planning that date night or trying something new. Telling your partner how you appreciate them, maybe leaving a note, maybe getting flowers. But if you're looking for more support, you should really join our free Facebook group. It's a great space to be able to connect with others, share ideas, and learn practical tips. And you can also, of course, check out my book, Forever and Ever. And soon we're going to be doing more virtual workshops for even bigger insights. And this is all very fresh work that we're doing, that I'm working on for this Forever and Ever channel. And so be sure to you could subscribe and stay up to date to some new changes that we might be making. So all that being said, thank you for joining me today for the Forever and Ever podcast. Remember, the spark doesn't have to fade. With a little effort, a little love, you can keep your relationship full of life and passion. Until next time, have a great life.